Hello, and welcome to the last week of the course. Today we're going to be talking about developing and submitting your action research project presentation. You probably noticed that this module is shorter than the other modules. It doesn't have a discussion posting, for example, in order to give you time to prepare this PowerPoint. It's important that you listen to this entire to this entire lecture before you begin preparing your PowerPoint. Some time ago, you were sent, and it was also placed on the course site, an action research project overdue. Embedded in this document were the steps that you should have taken to complete this project. Many of you are most of the way through this project, but it will be helpful to review the steps. It's worth 35% of your grade, and it is due on Sunday, May 11th. First of all, I asked you to understand your own public relations policy. That was step. And that was due February 16th. Next, by March 2nd, I asked you to identify 2 stakeholders to interview and obtain their permission. Step 3 was to conduct the interviews. I asked that be done by April 6th. Step 4 was to analyze the qualitative data, and you were free to send me your tables to look at, and many of you did, and I provided feedback. That was due by April 20th. And now by May 11, we've reached the final step to develop a presentation of your findings and recommendations based on those findings. So let's see what that should look like. First of all, this should be uploaded as a PowerPoint presentation to the course site under Action Research Project, Submit Here. That's available in this week's module, in this week's folder. Second of all, this project does count as your fieldwork for this course. So instead of going out and having to attend meetings, you interacted in a meaningful way with people in the field. You interacted with administrators or parents or teachers, your participants. Every hour that you put in on this project counts, and that's how you get up to the 15 hours fieldwork required for this project. So if you did 3 hours of coding, for example, that counts. If you did 2 hours of interviewing, that counts. Whatever you did to work on this project counts. For your final project, excuse me, you should develop a PowerPoint or a Prezi presentation. And if you don't know how to do Prezi, don't worry about it. If you do, you'll know that you'll need to upload a link that summarizes the school or district public relations policy and recommends modifications for improvement based on the data you collected during your interviews. You should have at a minimum 7 slides in your presentation. What are these slides? The first slide should be a title slide with the name of your research study and your name. So, for example, you could say a summary of findings, of qualitative findings regarding public relations, and you could give the name of your school district. It's important not to use participants' real names, but to develop pseudonyms for them. You can call them Mrs. S, Mrs. T, Dr. M, for example, but you may use the name of the school district. Slide 2 should be a summary of the current public relations or communications policy. That's why I asked you to go out and to find it. If your organization has a policy, summarize it briefly on 1 or 2 slides. If it does not, indicate that none exists. Even if your district does not have a policy, it's still important to say that none exists. The research question we were given. So slide 3 should simply have this text. This is the research question. What are the perceptions of stakeholders regarding your educational organization, and how may these perceptions guide a plan for the development of a new policy or improvement of an existing policy. You'll recall when we first started talking about action research that all research is aimed at answering a question, and this is your question. You'll notice the word perceptions here. We're not dealing with empirical numbers, for example. We're not dealing with hard data. We're dealing with people's thoughts and perceptions. And because we've only collected 2 participants' perceptions, we don't really have a very big sample, a big enough sample to draw conclusions about what we should do. If you were doing this for real, you might go out and you get maybe 10 participants from all different walks of life, and then you would have a bigger sample from which to draw conclusions. Again, qualitative research doesn't require thousands of participants the way quantitative research or research with empirical numbers might. You're not running statistics. You're looking at different people's ideas. Your 4th slide should be about your participants, who they were. And by this, I don't mean their names. I mean their roles in your organization. Are they a parent? Are they an administrator? Again, use pseudonyms to protect their identities. Slide 5 and maybe 6 and 7, a few slides, should provide your themes. Now, a really good way to do this is to give, let's say you found 4 themes. Provide each theme a separate slide. And under the theme, you probably want to use a quote if you have it. So let's say, for example, that one of your themes was good outreach to parents. You could put that in a slide, and then you could put a quote that the participant actually said if you have it or can remember it. For example, in quotes, you might put, "I always know when events are because of the website." If you don't have those quotations, you'll want to put bullets with some of the details, and these might be your axial codes from column B. So you don't just have the theme there, you have to flesh it out a little bit and provide some details as to what you found. That's very important. So you're going to have a few slides about your themes. Next, you're going to have recommendations. So think about what you found in your themes and provide 1 or more slides, as many as required, to present your recommendations and tie them into your findings. So, for example, if the participant said that internal communication is lacking, teachers, for example, may not know what's going on. Think about a recommendation that you could make that's based on that finding. Now, you'll notice in the rubric that points are awarded for actually being for this step to be meaningfully connected to your findings. If you found, for example, that there was good outreach to parents, then to say that you need to improve that isn't a meaningful connection because it's already good. If you found there's good outreach to parents, but you made a recommendation about teachers, but you don't have any data to support, then that's not a good recommendation. So make sure that your recommendations are appropriately tied into your themes or your findings. And finally, it's helpful to provide some type of concluding slide that summarizes the study. Sometimes it's good to end with a quotation or a picture. It's basically just a way to end it so that you don't leave the viewer hanging. In addition to your PowerPoint file, you'll also need to complete and upload your Fieldwork Summary form. This is the form that you see here. It asks you for some identifying information, and then it asks you to list the dates, specific locations, and hours of each fieldwork experience, and it's got to add up to 15. Again, everything counts on this project, so think about the number of hours that you spent planning, the number of hours you spent interviewing, and the number of hours you spent coding, as well as preparing this PowerPoint presentation. The purpose of your experiences as they relate to the ELCC standards, you can just pull those standards right from the rubric in the syllabus. If you do leave them blank, I'll fill them in. Your reflection, you should fill, and then you should sign the form. Once you have completed your PowerPoint presentation and your Fieldwork Summary form, upload them to the course site. First, the links are located both on the home folder. This is a shot of Learning Module 15 that you'll see, and Activity 2 and 3 are where you can upload these two files. In addition to the uploading of the files in Blackboard, you should also upload your fieldwork form only to TaskStream in the normal procedure. Congratulations! After this, you've completed the course. I'll conclude with Abraham Lincoln saying, always bear in mind that your own resolution to succeed is more important than any one thing. I hope I've challenged you in this course. I hope you've learned a lot. And it's certainly been a pleasure to have all of you as students. I feel like I've gotten to know a number of you as we've interacted through the email and also somewhat face-to-face in our meetings. Thank you.